Brand new shiny thing in the studio. We've got the Komplete Kontrol S61 Mark III. So just getting announced today. Native Instruments sent this one over to me. It's a pre-release version, so there's still some bugs that I think they're working out. But man, it is quite a beautiful thing. Let me tell you, I've been playing around with it, and all I want to do with this video is show you some of the differences between the S61 Mark II. So I've got the old Mark II right here, and talk about some of the things they've changed and help you decide if this is something you need to pick up for the first time, or if you're an existing user, is it worth it for you to sell the old one and buy the new one? So as you see, there's one glaring difference between this keyboard and the old one. The old one had the classic 2-screen layout. So it's the same layout as Maschine and had a lot more Maschine integration. So on the old one, we had these 5 buttons that would work for controlling things like the scenes, the patterns, the tracks, etc. in Maschine. And on the new one, we don't have those buttons anymore. So they've gotten rid of those. When I first noticed this, I was like, what? Something's missing. I'm used to being able to see things like scenes on the Komplete Kontrol keyboard. But I do have to say, and I'm not just defending this because I'm a fanboy, but I do have to say I can probably count on one hand the amount of times I use those buttons in Maschine. I would much more often use Komplete Kontrol to play stuff in and then go to Maschine to do any kind of editing. On Komplete Kontrol Mark II, you can actually go in and edit in some ways, just like you can on the Maschine, but it's way more limited. Like if I want to go start editing things like events and duplicating and stuff like that, I need to go over to the Maschine hardware itself. So it looks like what they decided is no more Maschine integration on the keyboard itself. So that's something that's really important to be aware of. Let's look at the browser and see how we can start looking through my 63,638 patches. So obviously this new screen is beautiful. It looks so clear. It's much higher resolution than the old ones. The old ones did have a tendency to have a bit of light bleed. This one just looks fantastic. Oh, and it's not a touch screen. I'm sure some of you can be like, why isn't it a touch screen? So it's not a touch screen. I have never had a system with a touch screen on it in my studio. I'm sure there are lots of people who have used the MPC stuff and have used Maschine, and I'd love to hear your opinion. Do you find working with the MPC versus Maschine that you do use the touchscreen a lot? Because I do love all the buttons and the muscle memory that comes with all of that, and it's so much easier to click a button than it is to hit some kind of touchscreen with my fingers. Reminds me of that Simpsons episode with the dialing wand. Anyways, so let's try loading up something just so you can see what it looks like. Let's go to a glaze patch. So we're gonna find glaze, and then I can go to type, of course, just like before. We got synth lead. Let's go synth lead and then go to Plux. So I'll load one up just like we used to with the 4D encoder. And there is the new display. That's what it looks like when you open up an instrument, which is really beautiful. It looks fantastic. And you can see my 6 pages of macros right here that I can cycle through. And there's a new thing that they've added, which I'll show you in a second, which is really cool. If I go look over at the Mark II, I get a much smaller readout of what is above each knob. And we'll see that there's something that goes beyond just these macros that we used to have in the old version. And we have to load certain patches. So not everything has this set up right now. And so a new system they've introduced is groups of macros. So one of the problems before when you would load up a patch, let's go to an ignition keys patch. Here you can see we've got 6 different pages of macros. And some have even more, like 14 pages of macros. So it gets a little bit clunky to get to your information. So one thing they've just introduced is the ability to have groups of macros or groups of pages of macros. So we'll load up a Haifa patch here. And if I click this edit button, so now we've got a global that works for all of them. We've got a filters, and we can see 1 page for filters, and then we've got effects. And there's 4 pages for effects. So it's grouping pages of macros for you to access a whole lot quicker, which is pretty cool. Trying to make this information on your keyboard more accessible and more usable. Because I think the key to this keyboard really working is me or you actually using these knobs, actually using the functionality of this hardware as opposed to loading up a patch and then just using your mouse. User experience, right? I have to say that my user experience on the Maschine has been incredible. I always say that because I get so caught up in the flow that the hardware gives me that it becomes an organic thing, and it's taking me away from the keyboard and mouse in a way that actually makes me work faster. I have a video on using Maschine with Cubase as a controller, and I still get lots of comments on that video, but I gotta be honest, I haven't touched that Maschine Cubase controller since I made that video because it's just not tightly integrated. If Steinberg would release a controller like the Maschine that was perfectly integrated with the software, I'd probably start using it. So I think that's what they're going for here. So trying to make this whole system work perfectly integrated with their Komplete Kontrol software or with Kontakt. And that's something I should mention is that now you don't have to have Komplete Kontrol running to use any of the Kontakt stuff. So you can just have an instance of Kontakt, use the browser from Kontakt, just like you would in Komplete Kontrol. You just don't have to load it inside Komplete Kontrol. I got a little nervous about that. Like, are they going to discontinue the Komplete Kontrol software? But they're not going to do that because there's all sorts of other instruments that you can load up from Komplete Kontrol. Like I can go to the browser here and go to brand and go to any of the brands that have made themselves compatible with the NKS system. So I can go to Arturia, I can go to Yuhi, any of these different companies and load their very specific software with this whole system. And Diva is actually one that I've got loaded here and actually has this NKS2 compatibility, which is super cool. So I can go here and let's go to a synth pad right here. There we go. There we go. Clean. All right, I'm gonna try those patches. Load that up. And now if I click the edit button right here, we can see all the different folders they've got set up for Diva. So Diva is this hugely complex synthesizer and so many different controls on it. And look at how much they've got already sorted out here. So we've got 4 pages for the oscillators. We go to the filters and we've got 2 pages for the filters. You can jump over to the LFO and now start tweaking your LFO, all from the keyboard. And so this is where this whole software hardware integration is kind of taking a step up and is going to become more usable in the sense that now every component of Diva is accessible to me on the synthesizer with just a few clicks. It's not like, clicking through 17 pages of menus to get to that one knob. If we're trying to make this experience like Diva is now hardware that I'm playing with and using muscle memory for, this is the way it's done. A couple other things I forgot to mention. If we go over to the settings, we can see that we can change the brightness of the LEDs. So if I look over here at these LEDs versus these ones now sit kind of above the keys. There's like a bit of a ridge right here. And so the keys aren't lit up like they used to be. The old one here, if I look, I can see the LEDs bleed right onto the keys. It sort of feels like it's a little bit more separate from the keys themselves. You can also go in and change the color. So I'm going to change this to orange because that's, my favorite color. I'm not sure if you noticed. Anyway, so we got orange now. That's just going to stay that way. We've got display brightness for this part, and then we've got LED brightness. So that's at 100% brightness right now. And then other changes, of course, the mod wheel and the pitch bend are aluminum, I think now, which is really nice. I didn't mind these rubber ones before. They've also changed this controller strip and put it above those other wheels, which I think is brilliant because I don't know about you guys, but I would bump that one down here all the time when I was doing pitch bend and stuff, and now all of a sudden your patch has completely changed. Other things they've got now on here is this play assist, which looks a little bit different. We did have scales and stuff like that in the old one. Load that one up. Choose the different type of arpeggios and stuff from here. So all the regular arpeggiator stuff is in there. We've also got scale mode. So if I turn arpeggiator off and hold shift and turn scale mode on, now we've got a visual view of the notes that you're playing. And if I change this to C minor, let's go to major, let's change it to minor. You can see that I'm playing just the white notes, but it's actually playing a minor scale for me. So this note right here is getting pushed down to E flat, and you can even see with the lights, of course, that these are the notes you should be playing. If I change this to easy and change this to a D, look at that. So now it's playing D minor for me, even though I'm just playing a C major scale. So now I could learn just basic chord positions in C. I can make it any key, minor or major. So now let's change this to major, and but we can do heart and soul in minor. You ready for this? Let's do it in C sharp minor. Not an easy key. And another huge thing that I would be in big trouble if I forgot that they've added is polyphonic aftertouch. Filming a video. I don't know.
Keep that in the video.
Oh, okay. So we do have polyphonic aftertouch, and this here is an example. So this, by the way, is what a patch looks like when we don't have the art loaded up just yet. We should be getting updates for all of them, so you have the fancy artwork. You can see everything else still works on it. And we've got this polyphonic aftertouch patch. So you can feel it when you play the note down. You get that extra little bit of resistance at the very bottom. So make sure you have a good keyboard stand before you start doing this. And then the last thing I'll show you just is the DAW integration. So in Cubase, I just wanted to show you what the mixer looks like. Really nice. You can press play. And then I can press shift. And if I push up with the 4D encoder, now I get panning. So I can pan left and right. And it does seem like my meters are a little slow. I'm not sure if this is a pre-release bug or not, because we need those meters to be nice and accurate. And the 4D encoder, of course, is the jog wheel for Cubase, which is really nice. And the mixer integration isn't that much different. It just looks really clean. So there you go. That's the new Komplete Kontrol MK3 keyboard. I think this display is beautiful. Really excited about the different groupings of macros. And I feel like I may just end up using this way more than I use the other one in terms of dialing in patches, working on patches, and giving you the feel of, you know, an analog synthesizer, a hardware synthesizer, controls that are easily accessible with these knobs and make things faster than actually working with the keyboard and mouse. Thanks, Native Instruments, for sending it over. Hit me up with any questions in the comments if you have any, and thanks for watching the video.